Don't you love an extra $100 in your pocket? Have a TurboTax expert file your taxes for you by March 31st to get $100 back instantly. Because no matter what moves you made last year, TurboTax makes them count. That means getting $100 back and 100% accurate taxes, only from Intuit TurboTax. Must file by 3/31. Credit only applicable to federal filing fees with TurboTax full service. Offer can be modified or terminated at any time.
You know, everybody's got a to-do list. Drop off the dry cleaning, pick up some milk. Here's an idea. Let's save hundreds of dollars on car insurance. And the good thing is you don't have to drop off or pick up anything. All you have to do is go to geico.com, and in 15 minutes you could be saving 15% or more on car insurance. Extra money in your pocket. It just may be the most rewarding to-do you do today.
Now Podcast One brings you Spike's Car Radio. A downloadable cars and coffee, hosted by writer, comedian, and automotive enthusiast, Spike Ferriston. Now, here's Spike.
Hi, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to Spike's Car Radio. I'm alone here in the Beverly Hills studio. Well, not alone. Will, our producer's here in the booth. Hi, Will.
Hey.
Zuckerman, he's back from his Sicilian vacation.
Okay.
He was not kidnapped, but he's suffering old man jet lag.
You got to take a couple extra days.
What do you mean?
Like when you get the jet lag, you're like, I got to extend the
Well, a
vacation.
young man like yourself, I think, can survive it. But Zuckerman, he's having a hard time.
What about all the money he's missing out on?
He told me a couple of things this morning when he was making horrible excuses about not coming in and doing this podcast and letting the listeners down. He said I'm never. He said it like this. He goes, I'm never fucking going on vacation again. It was horrible. The vacation's fine, but I had to like do 3 times the amount of work in 1 week just to get 1 week off, and now I'm 3 weeks behind. It's never happened again. And I said, but think of all the mornings you woke up and just stuffed your face with croissants for 2 hours while you drank coffee, doing nothing. You know, he was not a happy camper this morning. He had a nice break,
okay,
but he's not. He's saying he's never going on vacation. But the real reason I called him was because this, and I really wanted his perspective on it, and he's not going to give it to us here in person. But the John Cena lawsuit resolved itself with Ford Motor Company. We've talked about it a few times here. They reached a settlement with the Ford Motor Company for selling his Ford GT, despite that program requirement that he must retain ownership for 24 months. And Ford will now donate the proceeds to charity.
Okay.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
I wanted to get his perspective on that. He said that's just a way to make Ford look good out in the world.
Right.
But it proves what we were saying, and I think mostly Zuckerman, that he is on the hook. That this was a binding legal contract, and John Cena and the dealer who sold the car, and that would be New Autos Incorporated in Chico, California.
In Chico?
Who doesn't buy their cars there? That is one of those, I think, if you open up DuPont Registry and you just see the new model of cars that you cannot get, they're the dealership that has one of each one because they found a bunch of guys who are willing to kind of sell their cars to them and take a quick profit. Both the dealership and John Cena settled, I guess is a way of looking at it. My opinion, both the dealership and John Cena lost this case. John Cena was forced to apologize. He said, and I quote, "I love the Ford GT."
Of course. Love it so much he gave it away.
And apologize to Ford and encourage others who own the car to respect the contract.
Yeah.
Wah, wah.
I made a mistake. I'm sorry.
Oh, boy. Can you imagine that big guy being forced to say that?
I just want to see him in that suit, that really tight-fitting suit. Yeah, like no clothes fit him normally.
They got him. I imagine his hands kind of held behind his back and a big hand on his neck squeezing it, making him say this. I am pleased we could resolve this matter outside of court and that a worthy charity will benefit from one of the most iconic cars in the world.
From my mistake.
You know who wrote this? Ford wrote that. That's not his apology.
It's like Trump writing his own bill of health.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, Ford wrote this, and it's very clear to me that they did that. And I want to hear John Cena. I bet he's not sorry at all. And I wonder if he got to keep any of the money. But anyways, this thing is done, and John is supposed to come on the show, right?
I hope so.
He said yes before we started talking to him,
Okay.
And now I guess we haven't heard from him. In both cases, a generic settlement statement was filed in court, with no details on the settlement itself, only that the case was dismissed with prejudice and without costs or attorney fees to any party. Dismissed with prejudice is legal jargon. According to Jalopnik, the plaintiff can't bring this same case back to court. So that's what that means.
Okay.
They can never sue him again for what's done. What's done is done.
Right.
Right? So there you go.
Dismissed with prejudice.
All right,
Sounds
I'm
more
breaking
aggressive.
some big news here.
Okay.
Big Porsche news on the podcast that Zuckerman is going to miss. Couple of things about this new GT3 Speedster that I've heard from a highly placed source. I feel this news is accurate, so I'm reporting it to you since I'm fairly certain that we were the show that broke the Speedster news. I believe we are the show that's going to be breaking the slant nose news, this other new model that's coming out that no one's talking about. Nobody has that.
Okay.
But that at Rennsport, this slant nose 911 is coming out. But as far as the Speedster, you may recall a few weeks ago when I was talking to Daniel Armbruster, the CEO of Porsche Motorsports North America, and Jeff Zwart about how much of this concept car would make it to production and how many are they going to make. Mm-hmm. Well, I have the answers to those questions. All right?
Are you free to
you don't know anything about Porsches, Will, so you're not even going to be able to guess at any of this.
No, but I'm looking at you, doe-eyed waiting.
All right. I have heard that the Speedster concept car is the car. The car is the car. What you're seeing is what you are getting. Those beautiful bullet Talbot mirrors on the side, the center filler fuel cap, all of those little the hood restraints on the front there, the little hood latches with leather. I think they're leather. I haven't looked at that close. All of that stuff is staying on the car, which is amazing. Mm. A center fuel filler for a production car. I mean, I know you're not a car guy. You're just. But I'm excited. The people out there listening are excited. The guys in their shops, the guys in their cars, the folks around the world. Guess what? That's the car you're going to get. But can you get it? Can you get it? Is this car gettable? Are they going to do a stupid number like 356? Are they going to do a stupid number like 914? No, they are not. I've also heard they're going to make. Go ahead and put the drum roll in. Ready?
Yeah, here it is.
1,948.
Wow.
For the year 1948, which represents the 70th anniversary of Porsche. 1948 to 2018. And there you go. That's some big news here from Spike's Car Radio. You can quote me, and I could be completely wrong. But I trust the source of this information because, one, it wasn't Zuckerman or any of the lowlifes that he knows. But this source has been has provided me with good information over the years. And, I think Porsche leaks this stuff out anyway so that we would talk about it, right?
Of course.
They don't mind this.
There's no such thing as bad publicity.
Well, there is. There certainly is.
Not for Porsche.
Maybe. But there you go, folks. Today on the show, we have a fella named Ben Lyons coming on. Ben Lyons is not a car guy. He's a sports and a movie guy. His dad was a film critic. As you know, I'm in entertainment, and I don't want to talk about cars every week. I don't want to do that. So please, don't bother me if I get off the subject of cars. But Ben's on his way in here. He's coming in right now, as a matter of fact, and we're going to talk about his new podcast here on Podcast One, The Lyons Den with Ben Lyons, which it's a sports and film podcast.
I also produce that show. Yeah, it's entertainment based mostly, but he talks to anybody. So he has hip hop artists, singers, musicians.
You like producing my show
actors.
Better, don't you?
I mean,
how many shows do you produce here at this place?
6.
Okay,
but at any given time, it fluctuates between 5 and 8.
This is the best show you do, isn't it?
Hands down.
It's the easiest.
Hands down.
I know how to read the ads. Right?
Actually, it does it saves me a lot of work to not have to coach you through saying words that are on a paper.
Wow, so people have trouble doing podcasts, huh? No.
Maybe.
Do they get, how long does it take for someone who's never done a podcast to kind of get up to speed on how to broadcast?
Who's brand new to it?
Yeah.
And no broadcast background?
Yeah, maybe they're a housewife or they're something like that.
And it was in your mind.
But you know what I mean.
It depends on the person. Some people have a natural gift for gabbing, and so like even though it's just about them shooting the shit, they can still do a decent job making. If they're funny or have a good character,
right?
Podcasting is so flexible that it doesn't really have to be broadcast quality. But some people, it can be a struggle for. Because they'll come in and they ask this question. I've had this happen many, many times, and these shows don't last long. So what should we talk about today?
Oh, boy.
Yeah. I'm like,
so they come
in the studio now, and you're asking me that question.
Yeah, they come in unprepared.
Yeah.
No, I get that. No, I totally understand that. But that's, if you've listened to the greatest, the Howard Stern or anyone else, or if you've made shows,
right.
You know you can't do that. Like I used to think when I was 18 years old, I thought that's the way television worked.
Right.
And then I went to New York and I discovered, there's writers, and that's a job I can do. And then I went, oh gosh, there's 100 people putting this show together every day.
Right. It's like stand-up.
and every moment of it is choreographed. And you're right. Yeah, on this show, you can't just do that.
No. Like we watch stand-up comedy. So many people are like, you just get up there and tell jokes. You're
no.
Like, no.
Well, some people can do that,
but they still have the reps before that, you know,
right?
Honing the craft.
No, I found there are two kinds of comedians. Ones that'll just get up and do that, like Louis C.K. will just get up and just start running stuff. Then there's the pad guy who's got the bullet point, and then there's the Jerry guy who's got the joke written out, or Jay Leno writes them out, gets up and recites them.
Right.
You know, and likes that level of control.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
All right.
Well, look, you see I've got notes right in front of me every day for my listeners. I don't want to let them down.
Yeah.
I know that they're probably going right now, you're letting me down right now, Spike. Zuckerman's not here. I know that. I'm aware.
Our producer doesn't know anything about cars.
Well, let's bring Ben Lyons in here and get him in, get him out, and talk about his new podcast, The Lyons Den with Ben Lyons. Oh, great. Here he is, Ben Lyons.
Hey, what's up, man?
You were just telling me you were in New York City? Let's talk about that for a second. Because sometimes I think these listeners on my show don't realize that I've had this life before this car thing.
It's kind of wild, right? Michael Jordan's not just the guy from the sneakers.
That's right.
And I grew up in New York City, and I find living in Los Angeles, I have to quantify that by saying, no, in New York City. I have to say it twice.
Right.
But yeah, my folks are still in the same apartment where I grew up for, I don't know, they've been there 45 years or something like that.
Are you still living there now?
When I'm in town working, I oftentimes will add that to my rider. Well, like, no, I have to stay with my parents. Don't pay for a hotel room.
So where are you? But
I live here though. I live in Venice with my wife. But
there
I
you
get
go.
to go back often. And I was just saying to you before we started that I live really close. Well, I grew up really close to the soup Nazi place. So she'd never really understood that it was a real spot there. At least it's claiming to be.
55th and 8th. Mm-hmm. It's very disappointing to go to now because it's the guy's gone. I went there recently, and there was just a nice kind of surfer fella there going, hey, you want some soup? And I was just like, oh. And the soup was the same, but without the hostility and the anger. It wasn't as good. The whole experience didn't.
Thing.
Yeah, the whole
Imagine
thing
if
fell
you're
apart.
From Kansas and you're getting off the double decker, and then that's your moment. Is the surfer guy selling you gumbo?
It's so interesting that you said this. Because now I never really thought about it, but the anger and the hostility and then the Nazi-like regime of you've got to do it this way and you've got to step to the left really took your mind off of whether this soup is good or not. The soup did not stand out on its own without that.
It's also kind of cuisine where there's only, I think, certain limitations to soup. It's like it's really good, but
right. What kind of soup
like
did you have?
No. We were there in June. We didn't have any soup. We were just there.
Oh, the soup guy wasn't there.
But right, the idea of just soup is good. It's like there's only so much you can do with it. Barbecue falls in the same category.
Here's the picture I will paint for you, because you're a film critic and you'll like this. This is it's winter. We're writers on Letterman. You have an hour for lunch, and you walk 2 blocks, you freeze your ass off, and you're cold, and there's hot soup that comes in a brown paper bag, and it's, crab bisque with big chunks of crab or mulligatawny or any, just a plain chicken noodle or African peanut butter, right? And if you perform well, paying for your soup, you get that piece of bread. You might even get a little chocolate and an orange, right? And by the time you get back, you're freezing, and then you eat the hot soup. All right? Do you understand? Your nose is running a little bit. Do you understand how satisfying that experience is?
It's your best option in that neighborhood because what are you going to go to Rupert around the corner? You're not going to get a bacon, egg, and cheese for lunch.
No, we went to
a bacon, egg, and cheese and a Gatorade for lunch. You're basically saying to the office that you're kind of in a dark place.
That was it. If you were busy, you went to Rupert.
Yeah.
And over the years, Rupert never named a sandwich after me, so I stopped going to Rupert.
Why is that such a thing for all you comedy writers? Is the getting of the sandwich named after you is like a thing? It's a pride. It's an issue of pride. It's your participation trophy on some level.
Because
what is it?
The staff is competitive. All right. Now, by the way, at the Malibu Kitchen at Bill's in the Country Mart Malibu, I have a sandwich named after me. I forget what it is. I'm not sure it's it's something that I eat.
No, that's the second part of it. It's this quest for recognition with your own sandwich, but then it's this I don't even know attitude on top. All you comedy writers do that.
It's not that. Okay, so getting back to Letterman, I'll tell you what it is. It's competitive. It's a competitive job where you're writing for your life every day. All right. Really, your contracts are up every 13 weeks, and at 9 weeks, you can get fired. So on that 9th week, Monday to Friday, you're waiting for the door knock or someone to come in. So you're very competitive to get stuff on the air. And then if somebody else, because this is how it happened, Rupert starts, go, Dave, we're going to name a sandwich after you. And then we need an Act 1, like a month from now. Okay, Biff Henderson, you've got a sandwich named after you. Now they're two. And then suddenly, oh, you know what, Rob Burnett, head writer, you're in here all the time. I'm going to call this the Rob. Do you see what I then
I get it.
You
I
start
get it.
going.
No, of course, the Larry David episode and the whitefish, and he doesn't want that. The Sable sandwich. And then a buddy of mine from high school owns and runs Wexler's Deli out in Santa Monica. It's a character actor. I think his name's Ed Lerner. He came in the other day with his son who's on the Goldbergs. And they were doing like old Jew sandwich, young Jew sandwich, open face, name it the Lerner. Is it open faced or not? And the whole thing on Instagram. And I was like, what is it about comedy writers and sandwiches? And now I understand.
We like to eat. You know the stress of writing. You know what that's like.
That knot comes and you got that crab bisque running down your beard.
No, when you're in a writer's room, you're locked in sometimes for 12 straight hours with a group of people, right? And it's, you get used to it. It takes about 2 or 3 weeks to get used to what's happening there. It's kind of like a POW camp a little bit, and it has its own chemistry and its own vibe, but the breaks are usually food breaks.
Well, I think that's also back to the Soup Nazi. Back then, there wasn't Instagram and social media, so you came back to that bunker,
right,
and had these war stories of seeing the outside. I've just got yelled at and screamed. So the legend grew, as opposed to everybody sitting in their own vortex and their own self-importance.
That is true.
And seeing it on the phone.
Yes,
these stories almost grow in legend.
Yeah,
because you don't.
It's true. Them. Well, today, we were just talking. Today, I was on TMZ because I woke up yesterday morning and. Newspapers from around the world, TMZ, all wanted to talk to me because McDonald's apparently has stolen the Muffin Tops idea from the episode of Seinfeld I wrote called The Muffin Tops, which, frankly, I was delighted to be talking about another episode of Seinfeld that I wrote other than the Soup Nazi. Also a little weirded out that it took them 21 years. The episode was 21 years ago, and then I was
going to ask you, the first thing I heard was like, what's McDonald's relationships with muffins historically?
I don't know. And by the way, I doubt they're going to do it right. They're not going to pop the top and throw away the stump. Anyway, I just thought, well, I'll have fun today and just do a bunch of interviews and see if I can extract $1 billion from this multinational corporation and buy some cars and make Jerry Seinfeld feel bad. But anyways, I just, I was just, I don't know. I'm just so tired of people ripping me off on this series. And when I did this interview on TMZ just so I could show them this clock that I had bought on Amazon a month ago. That said, top of the muffin to you, right? It's a clock. It's just a stupid clock, piece of acrylic that says top of the muffin to you, right, from the episode. That's not me selling it.
No, that's
but you're in entertainment, and you know how hard it is to clear stuff, right?
Oh, sure.
When you want to use a piece of music.
It's also tough, and I get it. You do have a good ownership of it, but just Muffin Tops. That's like a hard thing just to claim in general. Like,
okay, well, I had...
guys, this Muffin Top thing... That's what
I want to get to you and your show. But look, right after that, I had coffee with Jerry. He's in town. He said, like, let's go have coffee. And he was going looking at some cars in Northern California. Like, this is going to be great. So we get all jacked up on Lavazzo espressos. And, we talked about this. And he said, is this actionable? And I said, anything's actionable. You can,
Pat Riley, I think, coined the phrase three-peat. Like, he owns three-peat.
Yeah, there you go.
That.
And that's what he said. Well, the next thing was, did we coin muffin tops? And I said, I think we did. I think we did. I know there are muffin top restaurants out there, but are they older than 21 years old? You listeners, you can let me know that.
This is what rich guys talk about when they're sitting at coffee.
This isn't
like,
rich.
Wait a minute,
this
hold on.
Do
we just have $1 billion business that we didn't even do?
This isn't about that.
Should we just go do a deal right now and sell muffin tops in every Whole Foods in the world?
I'll tell you what this is about.
What time's Bezos coming to join us?
This is about intellectual property, and I'll tell you, if any program that I've ever worked on, Seinfeld is ripped off more than anybody I've ever seen. There are characters from the show walking around doing things, signing merch. The Soup Nazi himself, and I do not wish ill will on Larry Thompson. I'm happy he's making money out of this, but he has a merchandise website, and he's,
Hey, listen, man, I was once sent a promotional jar of Ray Liotta honey.
Oh, right, from
B-Movie.
Right.
In order to encourage me to vote for you guys for something.
But that was our stuff.
And it was, I get a lot. I grew up getting the phone from Mouse Hunt, or I got, my dad would have the He Got Game, like, gym bag, right? Mm-hmm. That Ray Liotta honey, it's pretty good honey.
I wish I had that.
Great promotional item.
That is a great idea. Yeah. No, I was there for the
clearly
birth
I
of that
was
moment.
Reading your IMDb in the car in the parking lot,
but we weren't nominated for an Oscar that year. I know we were nominated for a Golden Globe, but they didn't care for pieces of B-Movie that we cared for.
I was a big B-Movie guy.
I'll tell you when I first appreciated.
Funny movie, dude.
Thank you, and I'll tell you when I first appreciated it, because I didn't really like it up until I had little kids, where I realized they're afraid of every bad guy in a film. Every time we'd put on a kids movie and a witch or something came up, it was over. Tears would start. They'd start crying. And then I started getting messages from parents going, the B movie doesn't have a real bad guy in it. My kids love this movie. And I thought, all right, well, we wrote a movie for 2-year-olds who technically aren't supposed to be watching media. But that's where it works best. And so you get what you get. Anyway, we're with Ben Lyons. We're going to take a break right now, and then we're going to come back. We're going to talk about The Lyons Den with Ben Lyons, his new podcast here on Podcast One. Think of all the weird things found in cars. I'm not talking about your garden variety petrified French fries or melted crayons. I'm talking about live snakes, bizarre trinkets, the kind of stuff that just makes you wonder about, folks. Another thing that will make you wonder, but in a good way, are Continental belts. Bet you didn't know they're OE in tens of millions of Chrysler, Dodge, Ford, and GM vehicles that roll off the assembly line. They're also OE on the majority of BMWs and VWs. Now Continental is launching the aftermarket multi-V belt with the OE pedigree. It's their OE Technology series, belts that are fanatically engineered for a perfect fit, form, and function, and Continental has an OE Technology series multi-V belt for 98% of the vehicles on the road in the U.S. and in Canada. Hey, you get enough surprises on work? You get enough surprises working on your cars and trucks. A belt should not be one of them. Go with Continental OE Technology Series Multi-V belts, the belt with the OE pedigree. To get the full story, visit oetechnologyseries.com. oetechnologyseries.com.
The largest technology conference on the planet is now on demand at Podcast One. Web Summit has teamed up with Podcast One to bring you the best in tech talk. Each weekday, listen to a new lecture or panel from one of the past Web Summit conferences. They cover everything from the future of driving to artificial intelligence. Listen free to Web Summit exclusively on Apple Podcasts, PodcastOne.com, and the Podcast One app. If you love the show, share it with a friend and leave a rating and review.
You're listening to Spike's Car Radio.
All right, we're back with Ben Lyons. The new podcast is called The Lyons Den with Ben Lyons. Ben, tell us what it is all about. Because I watched your little teaser. I listened to your little teaser.
Okay.
And you're talking about movies. You're a film critic and mostly known for a film critic. I had you on my talk show on Fox.
Correct.
And we talked about films. But then you said suddenly it's sports too.
Well, now it's really about the intersection of sports and film and pop culture.
And what is that intersection?
I've now kind of conditioned myself, Spike, honestly, to look at the world through those lenses, and you see the intersection in really natural ways. At the Oscars this year, Kobe Bryant won an Academy Award. I, Tonya, Allison Janney won for being in a sports-themed movie. Icarus, a sports documentary, won. So it's happening in the marketplace. And it's also just fun to sit down with actors and talk to them about sports because oftentimes they have tremendous access because of their jobs and their fame and notoriety. I mean, I had Omar Epps on the podcast, which is up right now, and he's played like football players. He's played basketball players, boxers. He played a baseball player in Major League, and he talked about which guys you train with. Like I was with Don Cheadle the other day and talked about when he was in Earl the Goat Manigault movie for HBO that Eric LaSalle directed in '96. Kevin Garnett was like a 20-year-old technical advisor on the movie, would come and work out and play with like Mitch Richmond and Pooh Richards. So I just love talking to those guys about their relationship with sports. Oftentimes actors, as you know, they don't work, so they have time to sit and watch the World Cup all night. So they really are really passionate about it.
And also they're not getting asked these questions. They go on a late night show and it's going to be 4 questions about what did you do this morning and then
shape?
What's the character like, and that's it.
Let's roll a clip. And I oftentimes would get in trouble when I worked at the E! Channel because I'd sit with Matt Damon and instead of talking to him about being a dad and how insane that is, I would talk about Red Sox middle relief, and my boss would be like,
wow, that's great.
He gave me like 8 minutes of completely unusable stuff.
Yeah.
But for me and for just, I don't know, my group of friends, it's kind of like what we like to talk about.
I totally get it. I love when I hear somebody talk about something that I've never heard them talk about before.
And again, they have tremendous access and insight, and Josh Duhamel will go to Minnesota and blow the horn at the Vikings game and come in on a horse with a flag and like just wild stuff. So I love trying to find those pockets. And then
Joe McHale's good for you. You should have
Seahawks guy, Seattle
fan,
guy,
right. And then you got Mark Wahlberg and the Red Sox, obviously. Now Mark Wahlberg also representing with a green Rolex, like a yellow gold green dial Rolex that's green for the Celtics.
Also has a protein bar company with Draymond Green.
Yeah. So, he does?
Yeah, there you go. Selling the protein, that guy.
Have you ever watched his social media on Instagram?
And
I like Mark Wahlberg a lot, but his social media, you would go, well, this guy isn't even famous. The way he talks, it's hilarious. He just goes, all right, I'm in my gym right now, and the phone is moving around. It's off his face. I'm gonna do some lifts. We're getting on the plane, and then he's just a guy from Boston. He's like any guy from Boston that I knew in Massachusetts, right? And then what fascinated me about him was at one point, and I don't mean to body shame Mark Wahlberg, but at one point he kind of was putting on the muscle and then had the dad fat that we all have when you're a dad on top of it. So he kind of looked big. And then suddenly he started this supplement company and he went right down to a very low body fat. And the guy, got in shape real quick.
And he's eating cheeseburgers on Sunset like 3 days a week with Diddy and Khaled. So I don't know how he's able to
I really admire his career a lot because he is not afraid to get involved in unscripted entertainment to do that reality show about cheeseburgers.
And if he's going to do it, it's going to be like 5 seasons and massively successful.
He dives in. He's not I have a production company. And we do a lot of unscripted. And the number of people we call who go like, well, I could never do a reality show or unscripted show. And I go, Mark Wahlberg. Mark Wahlberg. He's
on the list of celebrities I feel like who have been relevant for 25 plus years, which is really hard to do. But then also makes sense kind of in any room.
Yeah.
Snoop Dogg, Kim Kardashian. It's a real skill on some level. Like, Mark Wahlberg's at the High Times Awards and the Kids' Choice Awards and the Super Bowl and the Oscars and the NASCAR and makes sense in every
Emmys
room.
for all of these great HBO dramas he produces. And then Oscars.
And you know what? He's wearing a T-shirt and sneakers, and it's all good because he's Mark Wahlberg.
Right, exactly.
And he's drinking wine and selling protein.
We should all be Mark Wahlberg. We should all be as successful as Mark Wahlberg. Well, I think he should be on both of our shows because I also hear he's a motorcycle guy. He likes Indian motorcycles. He's got to have a car thing, a guy like that. And
I feel like, again, there's just like certain stars who just make sense. I remember Corolla is one of those guys, right? Where it's like you start and you do a man show, you do some comedy, you do a movie, you do a podcast, you sell Mangria. Like you just kind of like fall into all these different lanes.
Yeah.
And that's like, I don't know, if you're Benicio del Toro, you're an actor, and that's kind of what you do.
Well, now I understand what you're talking about with this podcast. I totally get it. Because in some ways, it's very much like what we're doing here, which is cars and comedy / entertainment. Because I find there are many comedians, lots of them have been on this show, who love comedy and cars.
Well, the relationship with comedians and cars makes sense because comedians struggle at the start of their career.
Right.
Spend 7 years bouncing around shitty rental cars in weird in cities across the country, or you don't have money, so you're living out of your car. Right, and then you have Seinfeld soup money, and now you can really get into your car stuff, and so it's a totally different relationship as you have more success.
I wonder what that is with the. I think if you're a guy on the road or you're Kevin Hart or somebody, you just run out of things to spend your money on? Isn't a car like when you're young and you first made money? Isn't that naturally what you look at? Like I didn't think, well, I'm just going to go buy a house. I wanted nothing to do with a house, but I was just like, I didn't want to watch either. I was like, I don't care, but a car.
Well, then it's like when you get.
I want a nice car. I want to listen to I want an air conditioner. That was really what I was thinking.
A big deal.
I want to drive fast. I want an air conditioner, and I would like the top to come down. And I'd like to have these moments I dreamt of as a kid in Los Angeles. When I was watching Chips and I was watching all of those '70s TV shows. Like I want to have that California moment. I want to light up a cigar on Sunset Boulevard and drive down.
And then you have the California moment of being stuck on the 405, the Sepulveda exits. You got to get off that, and then the overpass, and it's
But now I've achieved it. Now I have found the drive. I've got it. Anyway, I want to talk about you. So I'm done talking about me. So who have you had on so far that you like? Who will we have to look forward to?
I did a version of the podcast at ESPN for a long time, so we had a ton of people come on it there. But since we've been here for about a month or so, we had the aforementioned Omar Epps, who has a new book on fatherhood. We had Omar Benson Miller. Do you know him from Ballers and CSI?
Yeah.
And he's a good dude. Him and his brother came on. Kevin Connolly came on to talk about that Gotti movie.
Oh, great.
Oh, man.
What did he have to say about that?
I mean, there's 44 producers on the movie. So he talked about the challenges of putting the thing together and how he was scared at times on set.
This is the one with John Travolta, right? This is the one that just opened a couple weeks ago. Yeah. And how much did it make?
I think how much are you making from this podcast?
$90,
$1.40 or something like that.
So it made nothing. So it really bombed. I feel like I'd been reading about it for about 10 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I remember having it when I worked at E, which was already 6 or 7 years ago. I had to come. Yeah, of course. I had to come in and do a story on how Lohan was attached to it, and that was like 8 years ago. She's not in the movie, but it was this project that just kind of hung over Hollywood for a long time. And Kevin's a Long Island guy, so he knows the story well. And so he talked about being at Cannes with those guys. And then I had a guy named
So wait a minute. You saw it.
Yeah.
They took this movie to Cannes.
Yeah, they did.
All right.
Yeah.
Give us some top.
I didn't see it at Cannes, but.
To give us some top, because nobody listening saw it. I didn't see it. Tell us what you saw, please.
I mean, Travolta, has now gone into this space after the OJ thing, right? Mm-hmm. Where it's just so bad it's good, kind of. And that's a dangerous place to play in. Because sometimes it's just so bad it's bad,
Oh, no.
And just, the use of archival footage just kind of takes you back to that period. And that's what I said to Kevin on the podcast is, right, he's like a guy like me who grew up in New York. Gotti's just like the mafia guy from the Post.
Right.
The way that Trump's like the rich guy getting divorced from the Post. They're these kind of characters. So then when you try to see them as real people, I'm not humanizing this guy. I'm not trying to understand his motives. No, the guy was a scumbag, murdering, terrible criminal. Let's not romanticize this life.
In your opinion.
Right.
I'm sure there's still some Gottis out there who might hear that and take exception to your.
We had a woman, Sidel Noel, on the show. She ran track, University of Georgia. Thought she was going to run professionally. Didn't work out for her, had an injury, and is now on Glow on Netflix and in Black Panther. So it's how did you get there? So again, that sports and film intersection is where we're trying to play.
So the big flaw in the movie is that they humanize a bad guy.
You want to get back to the Gotti?
Yeah, no, I'm fascinated by it. I mean,
why don't you go see it?
I'm gonna now. Yeah, now,
look at that, Kevin. I just sold you a
now I
ticket.
am going to go
Look
see
at
it,
that,
and I
Kevin.
like Kevin.
Yeah.
And I like John Travolta, and I know what you're saying about that OJ thing. When I really loved that, and I loved his portrayal of what's his face, the lawyer. But now I'm dying to see how bad this is. Like,
do you remember the Gotti? I mean, you were in New York then for Gotti
yeah,
stuff.
Yeah, sure. No, I
so-
wrote many Gotti jokes for Letterman.
But like, how about this? I remember being like 13, 14, and it was, big deal in New York. And there was one of the guys was named Vinny the Chin Gigante.
Yeah,
and he faked being insane.
Yes.
And he wore a bathrobe. And so I would run errands in my neighborhood in a bathrobe. And my parents would be like, you're impersonating a murderer. Like, you need to stop doing this. I was fascinated reading the
That's right.
the Sammy the Bull book.
Yeah.
There was a movie with Nick Turturro.
Right.
Like a TV Gravano movie. There was also those Last Don movies with Danny Aiello on CBS. Those were like big. I just remember like the mafia stuff from the 90s.
Well, we romanticize them. Especially when you're younger, you don't quite understand. You're drawn to their power and their success, and you kind of wanted them to get away with it, right? Mm-hmm. You'd read about them in the New York Post and go, "Oh, I hope they don't catch him," right?
Yeah, they felt like they were like the ones standing up for the man, like because they threw a barbecue in Brighton Beach in July,
right?
And they're like, "Oh, he's a man of the people." And
well,
like,
what makes it then? What makes The Godfather great and Gotti bad? What makes Goodfellas great and Gotti bad? Is it the fact that we can't quite trace these characters back to real people in life?
I think that's part of it. I think it is too real for a lot of the subject matter, and some of the people. But also, just we've seen The Godfather and we've seen Goodfellas, and it's beautiful costumes and set pieces and iconic moments like the horse head in the bed and the fish and the Bobby Thompson, again, sports and films, Bobby Thompson at the toll booth when James Caan gets when Sonny gets hit at the toll booth, the Bobby Thompson game is playing on the radio. But the idea of like that is romanticized, and it's just so then when it's just really learning about some real life guys and it doesn't have the production budget of that, and I love me some Kevin Connolly, but he's not Francis Ford Coppola or Martin Scorsese. It can be.
He directed this?
Yeah. That's why we had Kevin on.
Okay,
Kevin and so I used to see him at Goal over here on 3rd Street in West Hollywood, just stressed out.
Yeah.
Like, I think we're doing it. It's finally going. And finally, I was sitting with Travolta.
It's so hard, though. It's so hard.
He'll
be fine. He'll do something great. He's just,
that guy lives a life. The guy's just sipping Pinot Noir at Goal watching hockey. It's like a pretty nice life.
He's another Boston guy, right?
No, he's Long Island guy.
He's Long Island.
Yeah.
Right. I was looking at. We got to go in a minute. We don't have a lot of time today, but we're talking with Ben Lyons.
I was going to come in and talk about cars and
Lyons Den with Ben Lyons.
License till I moved here.
Yeah. No, that's why I didn't even go near. That happens with the New York guys.
Yeah, right.
I don't want to. I want to. It's rare. The reason I asked you on the show is because I like talking about entertainment and films, and I enjoyed you when you were on Talk Show, my show on Fox, where we really, we affected the Oscars that year. You do know that, right?
Benjamin Button
and Forrest Gump. Someone on my staff had pointed out they're the same movie, and you can Google this, and we cut a trailer, and beat for beat, they're the same movie.
What's so wild, man, is that I remember loving that film. It was nominated 13 times.
Yeah.
I was kind of on an island because everybody was slumdogged out that
year. Yeah.
I love so, and I did too, but I just, for whatever reason, really connected with Button, right? And my wife is in that movie. I didn't meet her then. I didn't know her then.
She's in Benjamin Button?
She was a dancer, professional dancer in L.A., and there's a scene.
Oh, wow.
I think it's the scene where they're sitting and they're like, we meet in the middle. She's one of the background dancers in that movie, and I don't know, it's how life works out. I remember going on that show because you made that connection to Forrest Gump.
That was one of our many viral videos, and that thing got on fire. What I didn't know at the time is I had a couple friends who made the movie, and they were like, they were crying. They were like, "What are you doing to us?" And I was like, "Oh, I didn't know. I'm so sorry."
Can we do one where we point out that Point Break and Fast and Furious are the same exact movie?
Oh, really?
Yeah, Paul Walker goes undercover. Johnny Utah goes undercover to get into this crew of criminals who are pulling off heists. Great. Falls in love with the girl who's in the thing. It's the same movie.
Oh, boy. All right. If you've got too much time on your hands, we've just given you 2 examples. You can start with mine. You can go with that one from Ben's. You should start your own site of these videos. Which 2 movies are the same, and cut the trailers. It's already cut for you. Google Spike Feresten, Benjamin Button, Forrest Gump, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And then make this one.
Fast and Furious and the original Point Break.
And then make lots more of them, because I hadn't heard that one before. You're exactly right.
Right?
You're exactly right.
He goes undercover, and now he has to decide, do I stay with this crew or do I uphold the law?
When I was reading your favorite movies, somewhere someone had written them, and I bet the list isn't even accurate, but I was like, boy, we're really First of all, I could never put together a list of my favorite movies because it would be too long, right?
It's an impossible task, so I would be curious to hear where and what.
Okay, Marathon Man, we're in agreement. Goodfellas, we're in agreement. Apocalypse Now changed my life.
Although I just Googled my dad's review of Apocalypse Now,
Right.
and he was not feeling it.
No.
It's really good to actually go back and look at some of my dad's old reviews, and I wasn't feeling his wild 1970s like plaid blazer on Channel 11, but he didn't like Apocalypse Now.
He was old and you were young when you first saw it, and that's why you liked it, and that's why I liked it. That's a movie you watch when you're in college. You go, God, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. But then you have Into the Wild.
Oh, I love that movie. I do,
and
man.
that's the one where he chews the hand off, right?
The
guy gets caught and he chews his own hand off.
I don't know if he chooses.
That's not the movie, the Sean Penn movie where the guy's trapped up in the mountain climb.
Yeah. He dies. He eats the mushrooms and dies at the end.
Oh yeah,
real story, or potatoes or something. Yeah, real guy.
What? I've never seen it, but I'm not interested in anything to do with that movie.
If I had $1 for everyone who crushed me for liking a movie and then was like, "Well, I didn't see it," but.
That's
great cast.
I'm standing by my not seeing it and still saying it's not worth seeing. Because you know what I don't like about it? I don't like that a guy went up into the woods by himself. You know what? I did watch it. I did watch the first 10 minutes of this movie. And he started talking about why he was doing it.
When he's not in the woods. When he's at his sister's graduation.
And I was like, fuck you. Did this guy die, by the way?
He did, yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm sorry to his family. I didn't mean to say fuck you, but still, I didn't like the reasons that he was doing this and isolating himself. I didn't like that. But anyways, I Am Legend, which now again, I like that movie.
Great movie.
I don't know that it's supposed to be in the same sentence as Goodfellas.
Again, what sentence? How is this coming together? I don't know. I love that movie. I got a lot of shit for loving that movie.
Okay,
I think it's an underrated film. You go back and watch it.
Okay, I do like watching it. It's very watchable.
Yeah, standing against some of the Apocalypse Now and I Am Legend.
Well, that's what I mean. It says best movies of all times.
But yeah.
All right, here just off the top of my head, I took 5 minutes and wrote my favorite movies down. I could have done this all night long. All right, and some of them you'll laugh at. A Godfather, obviously. American Werewolf in London.
Great movie.
Great movie, right? I watch it. I can watch that movie over and over again. Here's a movie I'm really ashamed that I like, but I cannot turn it off when it's on. Clueless. I cannot.
I think dudes like us also respond to Clueless because like the Paul Rudd character is really good and earnest and grounds the movie in a way. And the fashion's just so wild, and it still holds up in L.A. I went and saw it at the Hollywood Cemetery outside last summer. Oh,
wow. There you go.
And some of the references and the jokes, like 20 years later actually living here, still hit.
You just love it.
Great.
And I put it in the same category as Godfather as a movie. We used to talk about this in the Seinfeld writers' room. We'd had, there were movies that you couldn't go near in the DirecTV guide because if you clicked on it, you'd be watching for 2 hours. And Clueless and The Godfather were on that list.
Yeah, Clueless.
None of us. Peter Melman, the grumpiest Seinfeld writer, said, "Yeah, I do it too. I can't turn Clueless off if I turn it on." All right, the obvious ones: Caddyshack, The Blues Brothers, Lawrence of Arabia, Dazed and Confused.
Oh, that's such a good movie. I remember that soundtrack. I was 13 when that movie came out, and feeling like, oh, this is kind of cool that I own this music.
Yeah,
and really like get the references. I'm old enough now to.
That when I watch Dazed and
people who are stoned.
When I watch Dazed and Confused, it reminds me of what my high school was like. Even though it was in Massachusetts in a small town, it wasn't Texas, but every beat of that was what we were doing.
Yeah.
We were out in the woods, drinking beer, smoking pot, driving cars.
Yeah.
There was the old Matthew McConaughey guy around who dated the high school girl, and we were like, well, she can't date anyone else, so this is fine. The Matthew McConaughey character was about 32.
I like the girls in that movie, Parker Posey, and when they're outside hazing them and doing all that. Yeah, it's really good.
And the bigger kids chasing, that was it. And it could just go on forever. True Romance, Raising Arizona, Fargo, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Clooney and Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
That's a great soundtrack to that movie.
Yeah.
As well. Notice your movies have a little dust on them. They're a little older.
All right. Here we go.
So I'm just curious, we talk about this a lot. Like 2018, there isn't anything I'm standing up and being like, "This is my movie. I love this." It's been kind of slim pickings in the superhero boom that we live in.
Field of Dreams. Yeah, you're right. All of these are old ones. Silence of the Lambs, Annie Hall, Forrest Gump, The Deer Hunter, greatest of all time. But you're right. What are the great movies? What won this past year for the best Oscar?
It was Spot. Wait, hold on. It all blends together.
Shape of Water.
Right.
What won?
Shape of Water.
Shape of Water. Yeah,
Shape of Water. Okay. That
movie that will live on and will feel good and will have legs 20 years from now, but isn't really like speaking to our state of humanity as it exists today.
I found it delightful. But I did not get excited
that should
after
be on
the
poster.
And I'll tell you
the
why.
Shape of Water, nominated for 13. Spike says it's delightful.
I found it delightful, but it shouldn't have won an Oscar. I thought there were so many movies this year that should not have been nominated, and more, and I feel that way. And this is, probably the last thing we can get to because I got to run. Going to the Dodgers game and the Cubs. Got to get out.
It's a 7:05 pitch, and it's 11:30 in the morning.
It's
so
a
you
noon
got a
game.
6-hour commute.
It's noon.
The Oregon Trail to get there. Yeah.
It's noon. I've got to go there, and I apologize.
No, all good.
But do you feel, since this is your business, this is your final question today, that the 1-hour drama business in television, which essentially is taking a movie plot and breaking it out over 10 to 15 episodes, right? These are just movies made into 15 hours instead of 2. Do you think that's eating away at the movie business?
I think so, and I think the globalization of the film business is eating away at it because there's so much money to be made by sending these films to Germany and China and Africa and all over the world. And if you're going to create something that speaks to so many different people from so many different cultures, it kind of has to be a little basic.
Right.
You can't really challenge people in a mass way. And that's why when like a filmmaker like Christopher Nolan is able to create a blockbuster that's just like an intelligent blockbuster,
so
that's
like
really hard to do, right?
Dunkirk, right?
Dunkirk.
That movie I would put on my list. I thought that was the best movie I'd ever seen.
Incredible, because you never see the bad guys. You never see them.
I loved it.
You just feel
Absolutely
their presence,
loved it.
right?
And I was really shocked that did not win Best Picture.
And the idea of creating mass entertainment that's intelligent is really hard to do. And so I think ultimately what happens is these films are these exports that go around the world. Anytime I interview an actor and they're in one of these Marvel movies, I'm like, tell me about the press tour. And they're like, we did Korea and Egypt and Germany and London in a day. And I'm like,
wow.
Whoa, that's insane.
Wow.
So I think that's part of it, man. And I think you're right. Having for 15 hours of television for not only an actor to really sink their teeth into, but for you guys, for these writers to be able to have these flawed characters, these Breaking Bad guys who are all messed up. There's so much more you can do there than in 2 hours.
Well, I just find as a TV and film fan, as a person who consumes this content, I would rather be on my couch at home watching a couple of episodes every week. I want it to last. I want this experience to last longer, and it makes me go to less movies now.
And it seems like the things that everybody talks about, right, are these long-form deep dive docs, whether it's the OJ thing or the Wild Wild Country, or those are the things that are really grabbing.
Those are the water cooler conversations. I have not had a water cooler movie conversation in many, many years.
Well, I have the director of Ant-Man on my podcast. We can talk about the cultural implications of
I
that.
like Ant-Man, and we'll leave it at that. I love Paul Rudd, and I liked Ant-Man, and I like you, Ben Lyons.
I appreciate you having me on, man. I'll see you in another 10 years.
No, you come back when we have we'll have an Oscar show with you, if they even have another Oscars. The podcast is called The Lion's Den with Ben Lyons. It's the intersection of sports and film, right?
Sure.
There you go. And you can catch up with Ben Lyons. Where do we catch up with you on social media?
I am Ben Lyons in the spirit of I Am Legend. So there you
go. There you go. And you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter on @Spike Ferriston. Thank you for listening, everybody. We'll be back next week with more Spikes Radio. Real quick, before you go, here are some useful car tips you might not be aware of. A coffee filter with a little bit of olive oil can clean your interior. Removing excess weight from your car will improve gas mileage, and you can place your key fob to your chin to increase its range. Weird, right? Well, here's another tip you also might not know about. TrueCar also helps people get used cars, not just new. That's right, TrueCar isn't just for buying new cars. With a certified dealer network and nationwide inventory of nearly 1 million used cars, you'll enjoy real pricing on actual inventory and a simpler buying experience whether you buy new or used. And with TrueCar, users can see what others paid, so they know if they're getting a good deal before buying. They're also more likely to enjoy a faster buying experience by connecting with TrueCar certified dealers. When you're ready to buy a new or used car, check out TrueCar and enjoy a more confident car buying experience. And as always, some features not available in all states.
Thanks for listening to Spike's Car Radio. Download new episodes every Wednesday on the Podcast One app or subscribe now at Apple Podcasts or podcastone.com.
Ever tried reading while jogging, cooking, Or even juggling flaming torches? Yeah, doesn't end well. But with audiobooks.com, you can conquer books without the circus act. Dive into over 450,000 titles, including more than 10,000 free ones. Get hooked on a bestseller, find your next obsession, or finally read that classic you've been avoiding since high school. And here's the inside scoop. Sign up today for a free 30-day trial and snag your first 3 audiobooks on the house. Sign up for your free trial at audiobooks.com/podcastfree today. That's audiobooks.com/podcastfree.